I was
lit.
I was telling.
It's lit.
It's lit.
Red light's on.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Something working.
I was telling Grandpa, or that's it. Just gotta rewind. I was telling Pat Merck about the uh, your father's name and Nanny's name.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because Aunt Bert and Kathy
Mm-hmm.
and you and Bobby all
Yeah.
got different ideas on it.
Yeah. We'll do.
Like you said, what was Mom's or Nanny's name?
Vogel. Nanny Vogel.
Okay, and she wasn't Shock.
No, my mother was shocked.
Your mother was Shock.
Yeah. The father's mother was Nanny Vogel.
Okay, but our Nan, what was her first name?
Betty.
Okay,
Betty Elizabeth.
okay. Now, Aunt Bert says she's Liz.
She's not Liz. Aunt Bert is.
No, Aunt Bert said that Mom or Nanny liked to use the name Liz.
Yeah, she didn't like it. She hated it.
Oh, she hated Liz.
She didn't want to be called Liz.
Now wait.
But in South Philadelphia, if your name's Elizabeth, you're Liz.
Oh, okay.
That's right. And
Well, Aunt Bert said Liz and Betty she hated,
yeah, that's right.
and she wanted to be called Elizabeth. That's what it is.
That's right. And they never called her that. Not in South Philly.
Now,
She was always Lizzie. And she hated that word, that name.
now what was her tattoo?
Her initials, E, S. E-S on her arm here.
E.S.
Yeah,
It didn't say Betty or,
Elizabeth Shock.
but it
That's
didn't.
what her name was.
It didn't say Betty or Liz though.
No, it's E. E-S, Elizabeth. Just initials is all it was. And they were done in the United States flag color. Red, white, and blue.
Because Bobby said the tattoo said Elizabeth.
No, it said E-S. Just initials.
Just E.S. Now, did she keep a Band-Aid over it too?
Yeah, she kept a Band-Aid on it for 20 years.
What?
And people are funny, I'm telling you. We had some weird relatives.
Now what?
And her father was Shock. He was Matthew Shock.
Right,
You were named after him.
right.
And he used to lift the barrels for mince pie, mince meat.
Yeah.
And he'd lift a barrel of mince meat, put it in a truck, and that's the way they loaded it.
Well, I thought Mommy told me I was named after that she made Matthew because it was Irish like Dennis.
No.
Because Nanny wanted to call me Al.
Al, yeah.
Albert.
After Al, Uncle Al.
And Mommy didn't want to call me Albert.
No, she wanted Matthew. That was her father's name. Matthew was her father's name. Matthew Shock.
Nanny's father.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she settled with Matthew.
Yeah, she settled with Matthew. And Elizabeth.
Now your father, you said he had a nickname of Chief.
Yeah, he was called Chief, yeah. He's a chief engineer.
Right.
So everybody called him Chief.
Right.
He was the chief engineer on the ship. There was 4 engineers on the ship, 4 stages. You had a beginning apprentice that was learning. He would be one. And you'd have a 3rd assistant engineer, 2nd assistant engineer, 1st assistant engineer, and then chief engineer. That was the crew that run the ship.
Right.
All of them run the ship, plus the people that work for him. And he used to be called Chief all the time.
So he was George.
Yeah.
His friends called him George too?
No, they never called him George. They always called him Chief.
Okay.
Or Whitey.
Whitey.
Yeah, Whitey was because he had white hair.
He had white hair, was young.
Yeah, when he was young. And when he was in the orphanage, he was in an orphanage. He was raised in an orphanage.
Right.
And that's where he met Nanny Vogel. She got him out of the what's the name, the orphanage. And her daughter, I forget her name now, she had a daughter she got out of the orphanage too, which was George's sister, my father's sister.
Right.
She got the two children out of the orphanage and was raising them from like the time they were 15.
And they were both really brother and sister.
Yeah, they were both sister, yeah, and brother.
Well, what happened to her?
She died. Her name was Marjorie. She was a beautiful woman. Very pretty
She
girl.
died young?
Yeah.
Did you know her?
Oh, yeah, we knew they lived in Hatboro. So we used to go up and visit them, and my mother would take us up to Hatboro to visit Nanny Vogel. That was a day's trip to Hatboro. And she lived in Hatboro for, well, about 20 years, I guess.
Huh.
And then Marjorie grew up there and died. She had a baby and it killed her. And my father went to sea. He went on the boats.
Huh.
But he was always, her was his mother. That was his
So
mother.
where did he get the writer name?
From her. Her name was Ryder before she got married. And it became Vogel.
So her maiden name was Ryder?
Ryder, yeah. And that's what he took. George Ryder.
He took it, or Nanny Vogel gave it.
Oh, well, I don't know who gave it to him or took it, but he took that name of George Ryder.
So he had another name before he was 15?
Yeah.
We don't know what that was.
Don't know what it was. I heard years ago, but I don't remember anymore, that one of his uncles was still alive. Nanny Vogel's brother was his father. They were actually connected, but nobody ever.
But he never said anything about it.
No, they all said he came from the orphanage. He didn't come.
So he might have been a writer.
Yeah, he might have been a writer. Maybe he picked that name himself. I don't know. Whatever, how her name was Vogel, his is Ryder. Where the hell they get?
But her married
name.
Her married name was Vogel.
Yeah, she was married 3 times.
So it might be possible that Ryder, that her maiden name was Ryder, and she had a brother who had kids that was some kind of disgrace or something, and that was.
There was a Howard Ryder. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was one of Nanny Vogel's sons, too. She had a Howard, and they lived on Romancing Avenue in Philadelphia. They had a candy store. I think he was the only one. The rest of them was not connected to her.
Huh.
But she adopted all 3 children from the orphanage. All 3 of them. Marjorie, my father, and Howard.
And you think it might be because she was related to him anyway?
I think so. I think so. I don't know. I wasn't around at that time, so.
Yeah.
I think that's why she adopted them, because she knew who they were.
Well, how old was your mother and father when they got divorced?
Oh, they were only.
Were you a kid then, or?
No, we were. Yeah, we were babies. We were all babies close together.
So you never had you didn't live with your mother and father when you were.
Never. We only lived with my mother. We lived on Romancing Avenue with her when that was a single bungalow. It's still there, and that was quite a house because it was all row houses in that area. This was a single house, like a bungalow.
Right.
Like this one, it was 4 of them.
Right.
In a row, and that's all it was, 4. It was special house, and we lived there when I was 5 years old, and then we moved to Norwood, Pennsylvania, where they bought the mansion that we lived in. That was a mansion. I remember it was $12,500 he paid for the house, and that was in 1923 or 24.
Wow.
That was a lot of money.
Who paid for that?
My father.
Your father bought it?
He bought the house and put us in Norwood. That's where we lived, in Norwood. And he didn't want no part of the city, and he hated the city and everybody in it. He didn't never went to the houses in the city. He never visited.
So did you see him when you were kids much, or?
Yeah, we see him when the boat would come in. My mother would take us down to Dock Street or the Delaware Avenue, and we'd see the father up on a boat, wave to him, and you see the ship pulling out. He on his way. He wouldn't be back for another 12, 15 days.
But he didn't spend time with you or take you out to lunch or anything? Or
well,
anything?
they used to take us to dinner once in a while.
Uh-huh.
Bert and Catherine and me, he'd take to dinner. He wouldn't take my mother.
Right.
But we'd take the three of us. We'd all go to dinner in town. Morning Harvest usually.
When you were teenagers, or?
I was about 12, 13 years old.
Okay.
I was just starting to play the guitar.
Right.
And he played a mandolin, so he was telling me about the music. I should stick with the music, it's good.
That's good.
They used to take us to theaters, you know, to see bands.
Yeah.
And that was when I was only like 12, 13, 14. And when I was 15, he took me on the boat with him on a trip.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I got to meet the crew of the ship and all the jigaboos that worked down below.
Right.
Yeah, I got to know everybody. And they got me a job on the dock. I worked on the dock, merchant miners. When the ship would come in, we would work on it. This crew.
Right.
What they called the black crew.
Right.
The black engine room detail. And we'd go on the ship and work whatever had to be repaired. And then when the boat sailed, we'd come off and stay on the dock until some other boat came in and work on that.
That was during the summer, or when you were out
All
of
year
school?
round. All year round. So he got me a job in there as an apprentice.
Uh-huh.
Apprentice seaman. That's when I was supposed to learn about taking ships in and out and up and down. But instead of learning that, I learned the machine shop.
Right.
Because that's what I was working in, the machine shop. I wasn't working on the boat.
Right.
When the ships would come in, they'd all get assigned jobs, and I'd get assigned jobs in the shop. So we never done that. I worked there 4 years. And then I was drafted. I didn't get drafted, I volunteered for the service.
How old were you then?
20. I guess it was about 19 or 20.
Right.
I was at the point where I was, because I was 21 when I got in Pine Camp, New York in 1941. When Christmas,
Right.
41. That was when Pearl Harbor struck. And
So you were already in the Army when
I
Pearl
was
Harbor
already in
hit.
the Army 9 months. I'd been in there 9 months. I went in May 10th. I went there until they struck at Pearl Harbor, which was December 10, was it? December
December
7, yeah. So it was, I was May, June, July, August, September, October, November. I was 8 or 9 months in the service. I was ready to be discharged for a year. I'd been almost a year. May, I would have been in the service a year. And they struck it December. So that's where it ended.
What's that?
That's when my father moved to Florida, and we didn't see him no more then.
Yeah.
He moved to Tampa, and he lived down there about 10 years.
Did he work down there when he got out of
Yeah,
there?
he worked in a drugstore. He worked at, I don't know what the hell he was doing in a drugstore, but he worked in a drugstore.
'Cause how old was he when he got out of the Merchant Marines?
Oh, he was way up there then. Yeah,
So he was retired from the Merchant
He was
Marines.
retired from the Merchant Marine, yeah. He had 25 years in the Merchant Marine. Because all the time he was on ship, he was on Merchant Marine at the same time.
Right.
Signed up at it. And he had like 20 years and he was retired. And I don't know how old he was when he died. But he called me up and told me to come down and see him. Me and Bert. So we took Bobby with us. No, we didn't take Bobby. We took the two of us. We went down there to meet his wife and to see where he was living. He was living in a nice little cottage like this.
Uh-huh.
one floor, all screened in and everything. And we went down and stayed a couple days. Then right after that, Bert had Bobby, so he wanted to see Bobby. And he asked her to bring him down. So she took me and Bobby and went down. And on the way down is when he died. When we got down there, we found out he was dead. He had died in his sleep. So that was how Bobby and her and I got down there and stayed a week while he was buried. And nobody in Tampa knew he had any children, so nobody believed we were his children.
Really?
No, nobody ever believed it.
Now when did that was? Because George went to see him once too.
Oh yeah, that was after that. George went the next year or so. He went down and stayed with him.
Right.
And he was down in Mexico.
Right.
George was. And he came home from Mexico and he went to Tampa, Florida.
So that's between the first time you went to see him and then right before he died.
Yeah. The second time he went on his own. He drove down to Carolina and then went to Tampa.
Right.
Yeah. Now when Judy and I got married, we flew to Tampa. No, we flew to Miami on our honeymoon. And then we took a shuttle plane from Miami to Tampa and stayed overnight there with him.
Oh, so your mom saw him too.
Yeah, she wasn't there. Just the two of us.
Right.
Bert and I, or my wife and I.
Right.
So then they got to be corresponding, writing letters, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The woman he married was a nurse on the boat. After he got divorced, he married the nurse.
What was her name?
Hmm?
What was her first name?
Oh, I know it, but I don't know it. Like Evelyn or something like that.
So he had been divorced for 20, 30 years before he married her again.
Before he married her, yeah. After he retired, he married her. And I guess he was on a pension at that time from Merchant Miners.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he got or anything.
Yeah.
We never heard that. We used to get, when we were home in Norwood, we used to get a check first of every month. It was $350. And my mother would say 50 in and 50 out. That means you check the check, take $50 and put 50 in, take 50 out.
Right.
So we always had plenty of money for groceries.
Right.
But my mother would take the $50 and go down to Grandmom's and spend it on groceries for her mother. Her mother and father and Aunt Ellie.
Now where were they at? Oh,
They were South Philly. They were down on Pierce Street, 115 Pierce Street.
Now what was her mother's names?
Mother
And father's name? Because that's not Vogel's, right?
No, her name was Bertha. Bertha Hannah Schock. Which grandmom's,
Your grandmother's name.
my grandmother's name, yeah.
And what was your grandfather's name?
His was Matthew, I don't remember. Matthew Herbert Schock, I think it was.
And he had Uncle Al
Yeah.
and
also
and Ellie.
Kate. Aunt Ellie, Aunt Kate, Uncle Al, and Aunt Kate she had 12 children.
Right.
Yeah. Aunt Ellie, Aunt Kate, your mother, and Uncle Al. That was it. 4 or 5
4 kids.
children. Yeah. They all grew up and had children.
Right. And what was the other thing I was asking Bobby and Bert because they didn't know as much, but Mommy Judy's father.
Yeah.
His name was Sam.
Yeah.
But
It's Alexander, his name.
okay.
Alexander.
Now Kathy said they called him Sam, which short for Salvatore.
Yeah, Salvatore was his name.
But his name wasn't Salvatore. He had an uncle named Salvatore.
Yeah. His middle name, I think, was Salvatore. Was Anthony Alexander Salvatore DeCenzo.
Right.
That was his name. And he went by the name of Sam.
What did you call him? Did you call him Sam or did you call him
Pop-Pop.
Pop?
We call him Pop-Pop.
Yeah.
Everybody did. Or Grandpop.
Right. And what was Kate or his mommy's mother's name? Kate or
Elizabeth.
No, Mom Judy's mother.
Judy's mother was, a tough one.
It was Catherine.
Catherine, yeah. It wasn't Catherine, though.
What did you call her though?
We called her Grandma.
Okay.
But it wasn't Catherine. Oh my, I don't remember.
So it was some kind of Catherine or Kate or.
Catherine or Kate or.
Because I remember Grandpa yelling for Kate at
Yeah.
the dinner table.
I think her name was Kate. I think that's what they called her, Kate. Now she had 4 sisters. And herself, and one down on Wilmington Avenue where we used to get the water ice.
This is Kate?
Yeah.
Sisters?
Yeah, the sisters. Judy's mother's sisters.
Okay. That's where Rose came. Rose's.
Yeah, Rose was one of them. She was one of the oldest ones. Rose.
But she was the daughter, wasn't she?
No, she was Aunt Kate's sister, or Judy's mother's sister. Rose was.
Okay.
Rosemary it was really.
Now where did Richard and all them come from?
Descendants of their children. Now, Uncle Skeets was the father of Skeets of what's the name, and he was Uncle Sam's brother.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was Rose's father?
Yeah, that was Rose's father.
Or was he Vince? Was Rose Vince's daughter or Skeets'
Vince's
daughter? Was Vince's daughter.
And Richard is Vince's son.
Okay, well who was Skeets' kids?
Skeets was what's his name's brother, Uncle Sam's brother.
Right.
And Tommy was the second one.
Tommy was the one with the bar.
Yeah, the one with the bar. And the third one was the big fat guy. Oh, I forget his name. Rosemary's father.
Well, it was Vince, Tommy.
Yeah, Vince, that's it.
Yeah, Vince, Tommy, and Skeets. That's it?
Right,
And
yeah.
Sam.
Vince, Tommy, and Skeets. And that's all there was in brothers.
There was 4 of them.
Yeah. And there also was sisters. He had Rosemary. They had one called, she lived down in South Philly, I forget her name. One was Catherine. That was Judy's mother. Her sister was Rosemary. And the third one was Marion, I think, something like that.
Marion?
Oh, Marion was the name of my father's.
Yeah,
One of
Marion
them
was your
Marion,
stepmother.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of it. Can I go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Oh, well. Remembering is hard. I can't remember half the things.